Hi everyone at Team PDFA, Marcus Mepstead here. Hope everyone's feeling good. Today we're going to start off with a little bit of a slower warm-up. It's going to be a bit more mobility and a bit more activation. All things which are really important for you to use, so feel free to bring it into your warm-up. Let's get going. So we're going to work from the ground up. You want to take a seat and we're going to start with a sit to stand to squat mobility pattern. So you want to have your feet in this position. So there's a nice line running through the soles of one foot across the shin to the other. You're going to sit back and forwards in this position and then go up to kneeling. And then from the kneeling, you're going to work into a standing. Sit down in the squat, keeping the weight on your heels. And then bring it back down and go in reverse. Back into that kneeling position. Bring your feet together so there's that line running from the heel along the shin. Switching over to the other side and then facing this way. Doing the same kneeling to squat pattern. You're going to work through 5 each side. So it's going to be a total of 10 movements. You're going to drive up, keep in that kneeling position nice and strong. Take each movement as it comes. So try and be really focused on each bit. The kneeling section, the bit at the bottom when you're sitting down, keeping your chest up. If you need to use your hands for balance, that's okay as you switch direction. And then the same with the squat. Keep your heels on the ground, chest up nice and strong. If you need to, when you're moving from side to side in this ground position, you can put your hands behind you. So if you need them for support to keep your chest up, that's okay. That's not a problem to do. Otherwise, you can keep your hands in front. So here you can see the hands are placing behind. It's keeping my chest up as I move the legs facing the right direction across to the other left direction. We go back into the kneeling position, sit down, working across, and then moving back into kneeling. So I've showed you 2 variations there, one where you have your hands behind and one where your hands in front, keeping them up for balance. The whole time it's really important your chest is up, your back is straight, the movement is nice and fluid. It's a really good hip mobility routine. It's almost flossing at the hips in this ground position before you switch into the kneeling, come into standing, and then work into that squat for that glute activation. You're going to come back down into sitting, rotate the other way, come into kneeling, work into that squat, and then come back through. Once you've done this for the 10 times, we're going to sit into a 90-90 dynamic switch. So it's the same movement we had from the beginning on the ground here, but we're just going to focus on that. So you can put your hands behind you to keep your chest up, to keep your back nice and straight. And then we're going to rotate 90-90, having that line running across your shin to the other sole of the foot, and then rotating it the other way around. If you feel like it's too easy having your hands behind your back, then you can have your hands in front of you. You're going to use this for balance. We're going to work through this 10 times. So find a nice, easy way of making this work, either having your hands behind you or your hands up. The whole time, if your hands are up, you're keeping your chest upright and you're keeping your back nice and straight as you pivot 90-90 from the left side and then from the right side. Next, we're going to work some hip flexor strengthening. So you're going to stay seated on the ground. You're going to bring your knees up and your feet flat on the ground. Your rest period is here where you're hugging onto your knees. And then the hip flexor strengthening is when you release, you keep your chest up and you straighten your arms. You should feel some burn coming through your hip flexor strength. It shouldn't be painful, but it should definitely be activated and should definitely be working. You're going to run through this about 5 times. So your breaks, you're going to squeeze your knees, just relax and loosen up. And then you're going to go into the strengthening exercise, hold it for about 1, 2, 3 seconds. And then you're going to come back, release, and work through back and forth in that motion. Once you've done about 5, you should start to feel it really working through your hip flexors. You should even feel it working through your back if you're keeping your chest up nice and straight and your back nice and flat. We're going to work through it one more time. Squeezing the knees and then coming back into that pose, really feeling the hip flexors working, and then switch out. And we're going to work into a natural leg extension. So here you're in the kneeling position, but with both knees on the ground. You're going to be extending fully, keeping your chest up, and then you're going to be rocking back. The idea is to keep a nice straight line from your knees all the way to your shoulders. So you don't want to have a break at the hip. So you can put your hands in front or you can put your hands on your hip to make sure they're staying in line. Go back as far as you can. You want to keep your knees on the ground. Really hold that position, and you should feel your knees and your quads really activating in this movement. I've shown you one where you have the hands forward or ones with your hands on your side. Either is okay. It's whichever you feel is more comfortable to manage. Here with the hands on the side, I'm just making sure that there's no break at the hip. I'm going back as far as I can, rocking backwards, keeping the knees on the ground, and then driving back forwards. You're going to do this for about 5 times. So working back, holding that position nice and strong, sitting in that pose, and then rocking back forwards. Next is going to be a hip flexor hamstring mobility combination. So you're going to be in the kneeling position now with 1 foot up and 1 foot down. And you're going to be switching from a hip flexor stretch, rocking your hips forwards, and then bringing them back to go into a hamstring stretch. You're going to do it 10 times on the right side with the right leg forward, and then you're going to do it 10 times on the left side with the left leg forward. You should feel the stretch coming through in 2 different places. So it's going to be along the left hip flexor and also on the right hamstring. Always work within your range. Don't try and push it too far. It's a really good mobility exercise, but you don't need to push it crazy. Work within what's comfortable. You should feel a stretch coming through, but it shouldn't be too painful or too much discomfort. Make sure that you're setting yourself well from the beginning when you switch from the right to the left, and then you're going to rock forwards. The whole motion is coming from the hip, so you're driving the hips forward, you're driving the hip back. You're going to do this for 10 hip flexor hamstring mobility movements, like I said, on the right for 10, and then on the left for 10. Next, you're going to switch into the glute bridge. So this is going to be lying on the floor. You're going to have your soles of the feet on the ground, your knees up, and your back flat to start with. Then you're going to raise your hips up to the ceiling and then drop them down. You want to do this for 10 reps with about 2 or 3 second squeeze at the top. You can have your hands down by your side, or if you feel like that's a little bit too easy, you can put your hands across your chest. And then here, you're going to raise your hips up, really push them up to the ceiling, squeeze the glutes in this position, and then drop them down. Should be about 4 or 5 more reps left. So you're going to work through it. Nice big drive up, squeeze at the top, and then back down. Same again, push through. You should have really strong points of contact with your feet on the ground and also your shoulders when your hips are elevated. Really drive them up. You should feel this working through your hamstring, potentially a little bit on your lower back, but most of the work is coming through your hamstrings, and as you squeeze those glutes, you're driving them up nice and strong. Next, we're going to switch up the focus onto the upper body. We're going to work through happy cat, sad cat, but really focus on the shoulders. So you're going to drive the shoulders together, really push them up, drive them apart, pushing them away. So from here, you're going to work through the scapular movement. It's really just to focus on the shoulders. As you drive up, your shoulders are pulling away from each other. And as you sink down, you're pulling your shoulder blades in towards each other. You want to work through this 10 times, really opening up and closing as you move through. The main focus is your shoulders. So the rest of your body shouldn't be moving too much. It's just to focus on that upper body movement, really giving some shoulder movement in this exercise. Once you've done 10, you're going to switch into thoracic rotations. So we're back into that same position, that 4-point contact. And here, you're going to bring the right hand under the left arm and then swing it up. You just want to keep your eyes on your fingers the whole way through. So just follow that pattern of movement as you feed it under the left arm and then open it up. You're really working through the thoracic, which is the mid-back. You're opening and closing here, giving it a nice range of motion before you switch to the left side. Same again, keep your eyes on your fingers so you're following them as they go up and then down through the right hand this time. Really opening and closing that thoracic, but really giving it a nice open at the top and sinking down at the bottom. You want to keep your hips in line so there's not too much movement. The focus is on the thoracic here. Next, we've got shoulder rotations. So you're going to be in that 4-point kneeling, and we're just going to do 5 rotations clockwise and 5 rotations anti-clockwise. So the movement here is with your fingers facing outwards, your fingers spread, palms nice strong into the ground. We're going to work through 3 or 4 different variations here. So once you've done 5 rotations anti-clockwise, we're then going to look to put the fingers inwards. So they're going to be facing your knees. There should be quite a strong stretch coming through your forearms. If it's a little bit too uncomfortable, shift the weight so they're not overloading your wrists. If this is too uncomfortable for you, you can skip this exercise and move on to the next one. For now, you're going to do those rotations, 5 clockwise and 5 anti-clockwise. Once you've worked through that, then you're going to bring the fingers inwards. So now they're into the center. So rather than facing you, they're facing each other. And the same again, you're going to do 5 circles clockwise and then 5 circles anti-clockwise. The final one we're going to do is quite aggressive on the wrists. So if you feel like you have weak wrists, so your wrists are not that strong, you can skip this one out. But what you want to do is you want to place your knuckles on the ground. So instead of the palms flat, now you're resting the back of the hand on the surface of the ground. This time we're just going to do the movements forwards and backwards. So we're working through the forearm, but rather than the underside, we're working on top. You're going to be shifting the weight forwards and then shifting the weight back. When you come out of it, make sure the weight is back so you're not overloading the wrists and you're just giving some comfort there. Finally, we're going to stand up and work through some neck movements. It's going to be 5 rotations, so looking to the left and then looking to the right. Nice and gentle movement, doesn't need to be fast here. And then you're going to swing your chin from the left shoulder to the right, working through the other way as well, from the right to the left. Just making that nice semicircle routine. You're going to finish up here, mobility from the ground up. You're all good to go.